It's a Freilich, it's a Freilich. Yeah, Avram Fried, I'm not sure when he's putting his stuff together. It's very big, you know. I think the Chabad telephones used to bring it in. I'm not sure when else. Okay, I'm going to tell you to find them, my dear friends. Now we're moving over to Yiddish phase because we're going to talk about Hasidism, and you can't talk Hasidism without talking Yiddish. So I promised Buber, so I'm going to give you a Buber. And I'll try to go through this not too lengthy procedure. I want to see. Back to speaker. All right, so I'm putting up on the screen so you can see also. You should have it. Yeah, what's about Buber? I'm looking at four great thinkers, and we'll do a series then of the unorthodox return to orthodoxy without being orthodox. Right? In every one of these, we have unorthodox Jews returning to orthodoxy without being orthodox. Right? How can we do it? So this week, and the next week will be Rosenzweig and Buber because they go hand in hand, and then after that, Heschel and Kaplan because they are opposites. So always nice to have pairs. So Buber and Rosenzweig are Jews who are on the outside. Rosenzweig, absolutely no Jewish background. Buber, some Jewish background. You'll see he grew up with his grandfather, but not deeply Jewish in the sense of being raised in yeshiva or anything like that. And then they come into Judaism from the outside. Kaplan and Heschel, very opposite, because they are Jews who grew up in the deeply immersed in the Torah world, and who then seek to bring it to Jews who are on the outside, right? Jews on the outside, this is now Jews on the outside who come in from the cold. So we start with Buber. When I was in rabbinical school, Buber was very popular at that time. I don't know how much people still talk about Buber today, but our professor of Jewish thought was passing around buttons, campaign buttons that said, I, thou. That's Buber's slogan. I'll go into it some more, I, thou. And then when I was taking graduate classes in psychology, one time I thought I would want to be a psychologist, then I said I didn't want to listen to Meshuggahs all day. It's enough. So I stopped. What I noticed is the textbooks in counseling psychology made constant references to Martin Buber. And I never thought of Buber as a psychologist and to the concept of dialogue, interaction between people. So further about Buber, Buber was very active in Zionism. It was not so much in the Herzl camp as in the cultural Zionism camp, but still very much Zionist. And when my father was a young student in Vienna, he was in the Hashomer Hatzair, one of the earliest groups. That's the extreme socialist groups. But their mentors, Martin Buber was one of the mentors to the group. He would come and speak to them, the other one being the psychologist Alfred Adler. And there's kind of a connection between them in psychology also, because they both go in that direction of psychology. So here's a picture from, it was an Israeli paper, and it shows the birthday party. It's honoring Meir Yari, the founder of Hashomer Hatzair, and the Mapai, the almost communist party in Israel. Not the communist, but the almost communist party. And there's my father in the back row, way back in the corner there. Just put that in for sentiment's sake. So let's get into Buber then. And this is a little summary from Ernst Simon, also one of my teachers, who was in Jerusalem and a student of Rosenzweig's in the Frankfurt Lehrhaus. So just generally, Buber is considered to be a leading German Jewish philosopher, religious philosopher. He's German by cultural, not by being German, of course. Jewish is the background. Bible translator, very important in Bible translation, interpreter, and a master of German prose style. The teachers of German are Jews. Greatest writer in Germany, in German literature, after Goethe is Heimler, right? Masters of German. So Buber's philosophy is centered on the encounter between one person and the other, the dialogue of one human being to the other, and the relationship of one human being to the other is where we encounter the divine, we encounter God in that relationship. And that is in that term of I and thou, ich and du. I'll explain a little bit more. 1923 book. So parents were assimilated Jews. His mother died. He was a young man. Very mysterious circumstance. She may have run away. It was a shock to him, and that may have been his spur to look into psychology, even though he didn't talk about psychology, but relationship. So he was raised by his grandparents in Lemberg, Lviv. That's where my mother was from. And that may have been, as I said, the loss of his mother may have been his spur. So his grandfather, Shlomo Buber, Salman Buber, very well-known, wealthy Jewish philanthropist, a masculine, enlightened Jew of his day, who was a great researcher in Talmudic and Midrash. So when you go to look for some of the Midrashim and you want a correct edition, that's what he was doing. He was going through manuscripts and coming up with what we call scientific editions of Midrash. So some of the great works are done by his grandfather. The mother, the grandmother, also a masculine. And he was not particularly observant as a young man. Right? He was Jewish, but not observant. It's like typical Jews of his day. Young man, went to the University of Vienna, Berlin, and other places, philosophy, art, influenced by Nietzsche, as so many people were. Nietzsche took about returning to one's core true self, and that directed him back to Zionism, looked for roots and a culture that was his. And as he became very popular, he was one of the early protagonists of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Back in 1916, founded an influential monthly journal, the Der Jude, the Jew, and was a forum for the German-reading Jewish intellectuals. As I say, also associated with Brit Shalom, they thought before the war, before 1948, they could come to an agreement with the Arabs in Israel and create a binational state. The uprising of the Arabs against the idea of Israel, of course, put an end to that dream. So he took up the study of Hasidism. He was looking for something to reach out to people that could give them a healing power from Judaism that would give some kind of faith and uplift in the age of alienation, right? Modern scientific life had separated the human being from the other. Everything was an object. Everything was to be studied. Everything was a thing. That's the idea of alienation. That's how people feel. We feel ourselves. Oh, think of Charlie Chaplin's movie where he is a guy working in a factory and gets caught up in the wheels. You ever watch that one? In the wheels of is caught, and that is the sense of being caught in anonymous, where nobody is anything, right? So he's looking for relationship. So he sees three vitally human relations that were destroyed in modern society: between man and God, man and woman and God, human being and human being and nature. Disconnect from all three. So they could only be reunited or restored by meeting the other person, or the one who is standing opposite in all levels, divine, human, and nature. So he thought that Hasidism, at least in its early stages, accomplished this, and that Zionism would follow in this example. In fact, it's very interesting. Many of the early Zionist thinkers were very much influenced also by Hasidism. They were not religious, not observant, but influenced by Hasidic, it would call the emotionalism, enthusiasm of Hasid. He was very important in this for opening up the world of Hasidism. Up till Buber, no intelligent Jew wanted to know anything about Hasidism. There was a big disconnect. You were either enlightened, maybe with the Orthodox, Hasidic, no, nobody paid attention to it. He reopened that world to modern Jews, and then also to Christians as a result. To some extent, then also Jewish mysticism as a later outgrowth, not from Buber, but from Gershon. So when he's writing about Hasidism, one problem is that he cleans up the texts. He turns them into modern texts. He humanizes them to fit his theology rather than actually present them as they were intended. That's the one critique. And he himself did not hang around with Hasidim. So the story in my rabbinical school is he came to be a guest lecturer one Shabbat, and one of my teachers was his guide, and also was there to protect him, because Buber was notoriously anti-halachic. Early Hasidism was not anti-halachic, but was a rebellion against certain aspects of halacha. So he was influenced by that. So which meant that seminary, my rabbinical school, wanted to be halachic. They didn't want to have him smoking cigarettes around the seminary on Shabbos. So my teacher's job was to keep him. And then he asked him, do you want to go to a Hasidic shtib? We have a few in our neighborhood. He says, not at all. So what is key for Buber is the idea of encounter, meeting human beings one with another. That, as I said, is this word ich und du, I and thou. Now, for those of you who understand Yiddish or German, you know that du is someone you like, you're close to. When you're far and afraid, it's sie. Ich und sie, right? Like the same as in, by the way, French, right? Vous, as opposed to tu. Spanish, usted, tu. right? So English used to have that distinction. We don't have it anymore, right? Pennsylvania Dutch still do that, right? Thou. They don't mean thou and thee because they are distant. It's because they're very collected. We are all brothers, thou and thee. That's its intention. Thou in English, we sort of associate with snob speak. That's not intended that way. All right, so we're left with you, which, by the way, Hebrew is also stuck with. Hebrew doesn't have a distinction. All the same. There's no up and down. We're all the same. So he is considered very important in what's called the third force in psychology, humanistic psychology. You have Freudian, where we're all controlled by our instincts. We have no say. We're behavioral Skinnerians. We're all controlled by conditioning. We have no say. Humanistic psychology says the human being has a say. The human being has potential. We want to actualize self-actualization. It's a term very popular. Figures like Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow. And I have a link in here, somebody wants to read, from a counseling organization about Martin Buber and the I and Thou in counseling. I'm not going to read that because I found something even better, which is in a video. And so I'm going to put this video on for you because it is, can I erase it? Yeah, here we go. Within a few minutes, he explains I and Thou and Buber's impact on psychology today. Oh, hold on. Yeah. There's the impact is more important than the fact. Right, that's the we may call the literary perspective. For a non-believer, Buber is not a traditional believer. It is the impact that we have. Now, his friend Rosenzweig will take a very different position. We'll see what it means. But here, this is a very good, I thought this fellow, Eric Dodson, gave a very good presentation on Buber and his impact. Here we go.
However, the Judaic theologian and philosopher Martin Buber would be a clear example on both scores. By far, Buber's most famous work is his short, semi-poetic work I and Thou, which was originally published in 1923. I am sometimes called dialogical or dialogal existentialism. The word dialogical is used to describe Buber's philosophy because behavior other people know about that other person's own past experience in much the same way that we manipulate God. Most of the time, we aren't really acknowledging each other's deep humanity. The unpleasant truth is that most of the time, we're just trying to use each other to get what we want. In contrast, the I thou has to do with what Buber calls relation or encounter. This has to do with first being intimately present with another person rather than being partially engaged. It also has to do with addressing each other with a sense of mutuality, reciprocity, with recognizing and affirming the other person's full humanity with our full humanity. Here, the primary temporal modality is the spontaneously unfolding of present rather than the past. The I thou happens in the here and now rather than in the there and then. For Buber, the I thou is important in our lives for many reasons. First, experiencing the I thou is one of the most precious parts of our human character. Furthermore, the I thou is the locus of all genuine creative activity, all genuine spirituality, and all divine transcendence. Basically, for Buber, there is no such thing as growing as a human being all on our own, at least not in any detail. All moments of genuine growing and becoming require that. In other words, they unfold between people rather than within or outside of them. Moments of transcendence basically occur in an unpredictable flux of genuine, fully engaged relations to each other. For Buber, one of the main markers of whether we're in an I-get or I-down mode is how we use the word I, which Buber regards as a kind of shield, a touchstone for the way we're addressing the word. On one hand, the I-get way of using the word I more or less maps onto the egoistic sense of self that we're often operating from. By way of contrast, Buber points to the very un-egoistic way Socrates, Burton, and Jesus used the word I, basically as an expression of non-relation. Of course, at this point, it's not expected for most of us to wonder about what we can do to have more I-down moments in our lives. However, as Buber points out, I-down moments do not arise out of willful activity alone. First, the opportunity to experience I-down arises from grace, which is a kind of gift that frequently presents itself in our experience. But then, we also have to choose to enter into the I-down experience willfully, by choice. In other words, the I-down requires both will and grace. It beckons to us, but we must also choose to enter into it. As Buber puts it, the relation is election and elected, passive and active at once. So, perhaps the best thing we can do is to allow ourselves to become more sensitive to potential I-down moments, and to cultivate the courage to enter into them when they happen. Of course, as an theistic existentialist, Buber is also vitally concerned about our relation with God. In I and Thou, he employs various metaphors for God, such as the center and the faith. However, his most common way to refer to God is the eternal Thou, where, as he says, a parallel line of relation meets. For Buber, every particular I-thou experience we have also makes at least an indirect reference to the eternal. Consequently, even self-proclaimed atheists who experience the I-thou in their lives are living in relation to God. In fact, much more so than self-proclaimed theists who have little or no I-thou experiences. Consequently, for Buber, our spiritual lives aren't so much about what we proclaim, but about whether we live in relation to God. Of course, with respect to God, the relation par excellence takes the form of prayer, of addressing God directly. In much the same way that we can addressing other as an it form of a thou, so too can we address God in either one of these two ways. However, where it takes the form of trying to objectify God, beginning to produce good things in our lives and withhold bad things, isn't actually prayer at all, but just a form of objectifying manipulation, a way of addressing God as an it, rather than standing in relation to God by addressing him as a thou. Similarly, attitudes toward God that stray out of relation to either an overly externalized form, such as God is all, or an overly internalized form, such as God is within me, similarly miss the mark. As Buber puts it, you need God in order to be, and God needs you for that which is the meaning of your life. Relation with God is about mutuality. However, Buber also comments on various aspects of our social being many pieces here is that our increasingly industrial and technological way of life is heralding an unprecedented proliferation of the idea at the expense of the odd. For instance, in our world, knowledge has become mostly about debating and accumulating correct concepts, which have value only insofar as they further our master idea project of conquering the world. Art and aesthetics have become mostly about evaluating constituent factors that are simply about making money. Teaching has become mostly about imparting knowledge about how things are or how they ought to be, especially with respect to the system of grades, rather than about helping students learn to take a stand in information. Similarly, Buber finds an unprecedented proliferation of the idea in many other domains of our critical lives, in the economy, in politics, in the workforce, etc. But although our social and cultural lives are leading us ever more away from the thou and into the domain of it, he speculates on the possibility of what he calls a return. That is, the possibility of return to the higher was our primary way of addressing each other in the world. What is required for such a return beyond that is, as Buber says, the call the nakedness of the world of idea on its true name. In other words, to call it exactly what it is, and then bound some on a relation to life that short circuits our chance to experience real relation, real transcendence, and real spirituality. According to Buber, the main impediment to effecting this sort of return is not a capriciousness of one to our time. As he puts it, the capricious man does not believe in account. He does not know association. He only knows the feverish world out there and the desire to use it. To move more in the opposite direction, and this is what I'm about, Buber claims that we need to sacrifice our little will, which is unfree, ruled by things and drives, to our great will, that moves away from being determined to find destiny. In essence, our greatest enemy in this life is the small selves that we usually think we are. All in all, Buber's philosophy amounts to an incisive critique of some of the systemic imbalances and pathologies that run through our modern world. But he also offers up the paradigm of a powerful and compelling alternative to Buber. Perhaps in the final analysis, the central question of Buber's philosophy is whether in our modern technological way of life that so much draws us further and further into the world of it, we can nonetheless find within ourselves the sensitivity to take the opportunity to enter into real relation with each other, and then the courage to actively do so. A question that plays out across our lives both individually and socially. And that's Buber in 10 minutes.
That's a pretty good one for 10-minute explanation. And I think Buber operated right at the beginning of the century, last century, and continued into, let me do this one, close this one down, and come back to my text. There we go, that's it, got what I want. So I'm just going to wrap up, because I think you got the point from him. You can see how using religion, he turns it into a tool to help heal people, heal themselves, lift themselves up. That's what made it so attractive to what we call humanistic psychology movement. So I'm going to just skip over here quickly. A picture of Buber, a very Hasidic-looking figure. He was not Hasidic because he was too anarchistic to really be Hasidic. But here's a story. I'm going to wrap up with this story for us. And then I've got some other quotes. I'll put them online. It's a little bit fuzzy, but it's a famous story from Levi Yitzchak of Radichev. And he made an agreement with the leaders of the congregation that they would not ask him to their meetings until they were going to introduce something new, a new procedure, a new approach. So one day they said, we want you to come to the meeting, and says, well, what's new about it? Well, so from now on, we don't want the poor to beg at the doors, knocking on the doors. We want to put up a box. All the well-to-do people will put in money, each according to his abilities. There'll be plenty of money for the poor, and then we'll distribute monies from this central fund. Nobody's going to be knocking on doors. When the rabbi heard of this, he says, my brothers, I told you, don't call me unless it's something new. He said, but this is new. What do you mean this is new? He says, no. What's new? It's old age. It's an old procedure. It dates back to Southern Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah. Do you remember what is told about the girl from Sodom who gave a beggar a piece of bread? How they took her and stripped her and smeared her naked body with honey and exposed her to bees to devour because the great crime she had committed Who knows? Maybe they too had a community box into which the well-to-do dropped their alms in order not to be forced to face their brothers eye to eye. Notice it's not setting up the funds. It's not setting up the administration. That itself is the Sodom and Gomorrah. It is having to deal one-on-one with people who are in trouble. That is the core. And that is where in contemporary society we want to set up a government program for this, government program. No, that's not going to be the solution. It's in the communities, organizations, where we're dealing with people on a one-to-one basis. That's where we really do the work, not the work of... All right. Well, we do need Social Security, welfare, and so on. Yeah, we understand it. We understand. But you understand the point is that societies which rely heavily on social services, formal social services, tend to not engage in the individual relationship. And that is... It does. Yeah, it does. It does. A little bit better. They're having problems. I know. No, so yeah, and so yeah, one of the problems in American society is, yeah, is the industrial system is, yeah, but the other part of it is that we also are disconnected increasingly. The very same systems are disconnecting us. So I'm not going to go into too many, because there are a bunch of quotes. I'm going to put them up for you all later on. But here's the point: is looking for the individual. There's a famous quote, actually, Tolstoy. A poor man comes up to him, and he asks him for some money, and he reaches into his pockets. He doesn't have anything in his pocket. He says, "You know, I'm sorry, brother. I don't have anything with me." He says, "You know, the fact that you called me brother, that already helped me." So certainly we have our social problems here, but we need to face them also looking at the person who is in need and going down on that level, or raising ourselves by going down, raising ourselves up. And how do we do that? That is the big challenge. So there's Buber. Next week, Rosenzweig. To all of you, a good Shabbos, a happy and wonderful Shabbos. We're in the month of Elul. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine. There's a relationship of I, thou in this month as we look for spiritual closeness